Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to our study of the Wishfulfilling Jewel. Kindly generate the motivation of bodhicitta, the intention to apply this for the purpose of ultimately establishing all beings at the level of perfect enlightenment. So once again, I'm very happy that you can join this study. This is really the particularly important topic of Vajrayana. So this is something that that we will return to again and again and again, and it is something that at the same time is something beyond the academic. It's something very personal. It's something that each and every one of us needs to do. So this is something that lies sort of at the core of what we're doing on the path to enlightenment, and particularly then in the context of the Vajrayana. So we have presently in our study come to the section on the visualization, and prior to this we've established the logic of the Guru Yoga, in the sense that for us to arrive at the understanding that is the foundation of the Vajrayana, the co-emergent wisdom that in these, according to the skillful means of the great perfection, particularly then is introduced by means of devotion to the teacher. And so the auspicious condition that facilitates this blessing is then the compassion of the teacher, the authentic, genuine Vajrayana Guru, and the student's devotion. So now in the actual practice, then we are at we're looking at how to actually undertake this in terms of setting the setting. First, we're beginning with the explanation of the visualization. Before we begin, just because I always think it's such a good idea to have some sense of lineage, then I thought to go through the lineage really of the Longchen Yingtik masters, and which really are the masters that are basic to what we understand as the Dzogchen Yingtik, or the Dzogchen heart essence teachings. So we looked last time at Garab Dorje, who is the first human teacher in the lineage. And then we look now at Manjushri Mitra, who was Garab Dorje's main student. So Manjushri Mitra, and this is taken from Nyushu Kempo and also Tuku Tundrup and Dunjum Rinpoche. Little bit from what I remember, but these are mainly my sources. So Manjushri Mitra was born into a Brahmin family not far from Bodh Gaya, which is in present-day Bihar in central India. Manjushri Mitra became vastly learned, and he joined the assembly of scholars in Bodh Gaya. It sounds like there was quite a bit of monastic and how do you say, universities around Bodh Gaya. Certainly present day we still have the ruins of Nalanda, which is not that far from Bodh Gaya. Anyway, there's no mention of Nalanda, and I don't know how that would work in terms of historicity. But anyway, from what we can gather, it seems to have been quite a few such institutions around Bodh Gaya. And based on a vision of Manjushri, who told him to go to Udayana and study the effortless vehicle, what we call Dzogchen or Ati Yoga or Mahasandhi and so on, he then went to study with Garab Dorje. And I think I told you last time that he was, in Words of My Perfect Teacher, it said that he was actually sent there by the other scholars to defeat Kyabje Dilgo, because they thought that the premise of the Buddhist teaching is the causal vehicle. But of course, Kyabje Dilgo's teaching operates within the same vision, but from a more subtle point. And so eventually, Manjushri Mitra was defeated, and he became then a student of Kyabje Dilgo, and stayed with him for 75 years. That's what we have in the narratives. And it's then Manjushri Mitra who classified the Dzogchen teaching into what we call the mind section, or the mind series, the space series, and the instruction series. So we talk about the three categories, or the three sections, or the three series of Dzogchen. In Tibetan, Semde, Longde, and Mengagide. So these teachings then he transmitted to his disciple in turn, who was Sri Singha. So that's a bit about the first teachers of the Dzogchen lineage. So last time, Rinpoche, Khyentse Rinpoche, he made a point about when we're visualizing a Buddha field, it's not that we're imagining something that's not there. In fact, what we are doing with the practice of visualization is recognizing the actual nature of things. It's usually our ordinary karmic projections prevent us, or not usually, but our karmic projections prevent us from seeing reality. And visualization is a way in which we can break through the habitual addiction to our karmic projection. Karmic projection meaning we project according to our individual alaya vijnana, or our individual storehouse consciousness, who constructs us as individuals, constructs our body, constructs what happens in our mind, and so forth, and also then constructs the vision or the view of the perception of the outer realm. All of this originates within the ignorance that is the foundation of the alaya vijnana, and it is then from this ignorance that we perpetuate this grasping at a self and the dualistic relationship with our perceptions that then are driven by this self-centering that brings about the kleshas, and the kleshas which we then act on become the foundations of karma and karmic patterning, and simply the habitual way that we react to things solidifies our self and the phenomenal world in a particular way that has very little to do with the actual nature of reality. So while we perceive ourselves as ordinary, and we perceive our projections as ordinary, in fact, what we are experiencing is a complete hallucination, a delusional projection. And so visualization is something that enables us to begin to connect with the way that phenomena actually exist. Our actual ground is free of these obscurations. Our actual ground is then Buddha, the unconditional space of reality. And this is hence why we in Vajrayana invoke this original purity in the form of deity, in the form of Buddha, or so forth, to connect with this nature. And also similarly, the experience of the field or the space of our reality, not seeing it properly, we then practice recognizing this original purity through the practice of visualizing a Buddha field. So it's very important, and this is of course what's a key theme really in understanding the theory of the Vajrayana, as taught in scriptures such as the Guhyagarbha Tantra, that the phenomenal world intrinsically has never moved from its original purity, and what we're doing with visualization is aligning ourselves with this vision. So here specifically then, we now look at how to then proceed with the practice. Of course, the one thing is the theory, understanding science, if you like, of the visualization of pure perception. But then the actual method has very little to do with sitting and pondering the philosophical aspects. It's about doing it. So Khyentse Rinpoche says, such a Buddha field, and we're here referring then to Padmasambhava's Buddha field, the copper-colored mountain, which we then visualize that we're in. Rinpoche says, such a Buddha field is composed not of ordinary earth and rock, but of precious jewels. There are wish-fulfilling trees, as well as a lake of nectar-like water that possesses the 8 qualities. So when we go into the detail of the visualization of this Buddha field, we consider it again as replete with all the spontaneously present qualities of enlightenment, and all the various visualizations that we have reflect the qualities of enlightenment. So while we ordinarily struggle with our phenomena in this unconditional space, there's no struggle, and everything that could ever be of benefit and anything that could ever be of pleasure is spontaneously present. So it's the opposite of the dualistic, karmically produced experiences we have of the phenomenal world. So the 8 qualities of these lakes, they are, let's see, water that is cool, sweet, light, soft, clear, pure, and that neither upsets the stomach nor irritates the throat. So such is the water in the Buddha field. There's wish-fulfilling trees. Even the wild animals living there behave in harmony with the Dharma. The calls of the birds carry the sound of Dharma, and all natural sounds of water, wind, fire, and forest reverberates as mantras. So there's nothing there which is, if you like, ordinary. The sky is filled with rainbows and vidyadharas, dakas, and dakinis, numberless as dust particles in the sun rays. Celestial music, vajra songs, and melodious tunes of mantras resound, bringing inexpressible bliss to the mind. The beings are not divided into those whom we see as friends and those whom we see as enemies, but all have the nature and appearance of dakas and dakinis. So this is the visualization, a blissful realm populated by all sentient beings, really, free from obscuration, and hence in their original primordial nature, dakas and dakinis. And so all phenomena have this nature. All are companions on the path, behaving in accordance with the Dharma. In this Buddha field, we perceive beings as free from the poisons of jealousy, pride, aggression, and without judging some to be superior and others inferior, we generate the same loving kindness and equanimity to all. So, of course, we're not blind to the fact that sentient beings in their karmic condition are jealous, are aggressive, and all of that. Yes, that happens in terms of their experience and also in terms of our experience. But this is our karmic projection. And what we're doing with visualization is seeing the innate purity of these beings. And similarly also with ourselves. And so there's not as if there's some that are better and worse. There's some that are more dharmic and less dharmic. Innately, the way that things actually originally abide, all beings are then in accordance with what we are visualizing here. Rinpoche says, if we hold in our minds this visualized Buddha field, our manner of perceiving things will gradually change. We will perceive all as pure and be able to see the paradise of the glorious copper-colored mountain everywhere. So this we also have in the lives of practitioners that train in this way, and this doesn't necessarily have to be great famous lamas. This also are all ordinary people just sustaining this vision that they are in the Buddha field, continually seeing everything free from the overlay of their projections. It actually happens that then gradually ordinary perceptions fall away. Rinpoche says, if, for instance, we see frescoes depicting the life of Lord Buddha on the walls of a temple, our devotion increases. If the walls were simply left plain white, they would inspire nothing. To keep visualizing a place as paradise works in a similar way. So we could stick with our ordinary projections, and we could maybe say, oh yes, I have all these projections. But we would want to recognize that when we're continually practicing this, something happens in terms of our interaction with the world. We are recognizing the purity, and we're also invoking this magic that comes from the inspiration of continually sustaining this outlook. Rinpoche says, in brief, we should perceive all the forms we see as being the display of Guru Rinpoche's body, all the sounds we hear as mantra, the voice of Guru Rinpoche, and whatever thoughts or recollections that occur in our minds as the display of the perfect wisdom of Guru Rinpoche's mind. We should not think that this is a mental fabrication, but that things have naturally been this way since the very beginning. This pure state is something that naturally exists, but of which we are not aware. So we sustain this, what we call these carrying the three vajras of the teacher on the path. We integrate this, seeing the display of phenomena as the guru's body, the physicality. We could say, yes, it's not a physical body as such, but it's all forms. And somehow is the display of the teacher's body, all sounds as the mantra, the voice of Guru Rinpoche, and whatever thoughts that happen within this state of sustaining this state of devotion and humble appreciation, joy, we consider that as originating within the wisdom of Guru Rinpoche's mind. And that's why it's important when we do this that we understand we're attuning ourselves to things as they actually are. This means we're stopping our ordinary fixation on our projections, where we very often, when we're rigid and we say, this is right, this is how it is really like that. We get rigid, we have opinions, we become small-minded, narrow-minded, and so forth, and we don't see straight. So with the practice here of sustaining this openness and that's imbued with this devotion and the blessing, then we're aligning ourselves with things when we're not projecting. We're aligning our things we're aligning ourselves with the reality according to how it actually is. So it's not mental fabrication, but it is aligning ourselves with things as they have been from the very beginning. So it's simply about us being aware. It's about discontinuing our practice of unawareness. So while we do use visualization in terms of a conceptual application, it is aligning ourselves with that which is beyond concept. Through the practice of Guru Yoga, we will gradually come to recognize the true nature of phenomena. The purpose of meditation is thus to uncloud our mistaken perception of things and to realize instead the innate purity of all phenomena. Jakob, for the short supplication section of Guru Yoga of the Longchen Yingtik, is it, O Guru Rinpoche, precious one, Titsum Guru Rinpoche? Yeah, that. Yes, Titsum Guru Rinpoche is on Tamji Tuji. Yeah. Yeah. Which one do I accumulate? Only that part or including the Vajra Guru mantra right after the last line? I'd have to just check. If you could shoot me a mail. I forget exactly how we're doing it with the Ngondro, but shoot me a mail and I'll answer that. We do accumulate the 7-line supplication. But yes, I think we also do accumulate the short devotional, this one that you're mentioning there, and then we accumulate the mantras, but I'll have to see. This is Vimala Mitra. It looks a bit like Vimala Mitra, but this is actually Manjushri Mitra over here on the left. Yeah. So this is Manjushri Mitra was the teacher of Sri Singha, and Sri Singha was then the teacher of Vimala Mitra. You talked a bit about the 12 links of dependent origination. Which book do you recommend? What is a good book for that? I'm doing it right now, actually, in the context of the Mondays. So going through the teachings of interdependent origination. There is a book that's called How Karma Works by Geshe Sonam Rinchen, and we went through it as a webinar study some years ago. That might be quite good. But also in terms of contemporary presentations, there are some. Again, if you could shoot me a mail, I could maybe, because I probably will have to do some research on this with regards to the Monday. There's a book that's called The Future is Open by Trungpa Rinpoche. I was thinking of doing a webinar on that next year, but in there is a whole section which is about the 12 links of dependent arising. I think there is. And of course, Trungpa Rinpoche is very good in terms of identity. Yeah, he has, actually this one is quite good. It has quite a thorough section on that. But a book that's dedicated to it is, How Karma Works. And you can find it then described in various other places. Actually, with Stefan Marga, myself, and him and I did a work that's called The Wheel of Existence some years ago, which I think you can get through Amazon. Yes, The Wheel of Existence, that guide there, yeah, that's quite helpful also. I mean, it's short, it summarizes it. Okay. So, ourselves as Vajrayogini. So we, as the practitioners here, we refer not to ourselves again in our ordinary karmic experience, but more as our primordial ground, and really as the perfect student. So we visualize as Vajrayogini, and particularly then because there is ourselves as Vajrayogini and also as Yeshe Tsogyal, there's a particular, you could say, auspicious connection there between Yeshe Tsogyal and Padmasambhava. So Rinpoche says, in the same way, we must visualize ourselves as someone extraordinary, here as Vajrayogini, the mother or source of all the Buddhas. So when we say extraordinary, this means that we go outside of the ordinary karmic projection and in fact return to what is the primordial ground of our being. And this is then where the mind is no longer deluded. That which sees this inconceivable nature is the wisdom. And we embody that, and we see this in embodied form as the Mother Prajnaparamita, Samanta Badri, Vajrayogini, and so forth. So we refer to Vajrayogini as the mother of all the Buddhas. She has one face, 2 arms and 2 legs. She is brilliant red, bright and transparent, not made of gross material elements like flesh, blood, and bones, but instead clear as though made of light. Again, when our elements, that of flesh, our blood, and our bones, when our elements are purified, then the innate nature of our reality is light. So when the elements return to their primordial ground, when they're no longer entangled by the gross confusion and the projections of our confusion, then their actual nature is light. So the original nature of phenomena then is then is then light. So all the details of her appearance, down to her ornaments and the black and white of her eyes, are perceived in very fine and precise detail. So we want to have this as a reference point. I think for those who are new to visualization, it's more about just beginning to step out of the perception of ourselves as ordinary and begin to have some confidence in our unconfused being. And that's where it's very helpful that to have some experience and practice of meditation, some practice of letting go of the concepts, to not be caught up in and believing in all our thoughts, and beginning to have some proficiency in letting go of our ordinary narratives. And combining that also then with the devotion, that is the key element here, then we can let go of that. But that is where we begin to have some confidence in our unconditional nature. And that's quite important. So we sort of begin with the confidence in our purity, and then having some intuition about the nature of Vajrayogini as being in this way, then we can gradually begin to have as our reference point the visualization, such as the body, the ornaments and details. And sometimes actually some particular details we click with. There's something that we might have something that just really feels very close to home for us, and it might just be one little detail, but we'd want to not be vague. And so very often instructions are about the details and the need to have the details there. But I would say my experience as a practitioner who came to this not as a very young child, and then going easy, and also speaking with others who have difficulties with this practice of visualization, I would say go easy on it and begin with just having some sense of presence of the deity, and then not leaving it vague, then gradually proceed towards the fine and precise detail. So she has 3 eyes which gaze skyward with great devotion toward Guru Rinpoche, filled with the joy of meeting the Guru. Now, this is also important. This is where we're not seeing the Guru as somebody who's looming as somebody who's smarter than us or better than us, but or any of that. It's just really the joy of the teacher, the devotion. Also not like some parental figure, somebody who's going to do everything for us. We have this devotion that yes, the Guru can through our devotion, it's the possibility, but above all, it's just the joy in rejoicing in the teacher's enlightenment and the joy in being present with the teacher. Her lips are slightly parted, revealing her teeth, thus adding a somewhat wrathful aspect to her otherwise peaceful expression. She gazes with one-pointed mind towards Guru Rinpoche, just as a man and a woman who feel great affection, who feel great affection, who then gaze upon each other. So there is this longing and this deep selfless appreciation. She is standing in a dancing posture with her right leg slightly bent, her right heel raised off the ground as if ready to step forward, and her left foot on the ground. She stands upon a lotus, a sun and moon, and a corpse. In her right hand she wields a curved knife, which is raised toward the sky, symbolizing cutting through ego and the 3 poisons of attachment, anger, and ignorance. In her left hand she holds a skull cup filled with amrita, the nectar of deathlessness. In the crook of her left arm rests the katwanga, or trident, which symbolizes Guru Rinpoche in a hidden form. She is adorned with the 8 bone ornaments, set with jewels, diadem, earrings, 3 kinds of necklaces, bracelets, anklets, and belt, symbolizing the transmutation of the 8 consciousnesses. Yeah, I remember looking at this yesterday. So the explanation of the 8, wait a minute, hold on. Probably it continues. Let's see here. Looks like Kindle is not working according to how it should work. Yeah, there's actually, okay, let's just try something here. 8 consciousnesses, if you're following our Sunday study, Resting in Nature of Mind, you should be familiar with this at this point. So, the undetermined and amorphous ground consciousness, the alaya vijnana, already obscured by ignorance, but undetermined with respect to virtue and non-virtue. That's the first consciousness, storehouse consciousness, all ground, and so forth, alaya vijnana. The consciousness associated with each of the 5 sense organs, so that means the consciousness that is aware of sight, hearing, taste, etc. And then there's the mind consciousness, or intellectual cognition of the senses. So also there, memory, for example, thinking if I say red, you pop up the image of red. That's happening not on a sensory, physical way, but on the basis of intellectual cognition. And then we have the intellection, which is predominantly tainted by the negative emotions. So this is what we call the nyunyi, or the klesha mind. So that is very much that which operates from the position of self-centering, the afflicted mind. So Rinpoche says the first 6 do not accumulate karma, while the last 2 do. So the first 6, meaning the all ground and the consciousnesses, they in and of themselves, they're just neutral. But it's once that we have the mind that validates and takes position, that then fuels the afflicted mind, that we accumulate consciousness. So this is then transmuted. So these 8 bone ornaments set with jewels, as we enumerate here, then they symbolize the transmutation, the freedom from the 8 consciousnesses. So transmuting them into wisdom. She also wears 5 silk scarves, symbolizing the 5 wisdoms. In form, she is Vajrayogini, but in nature, she is Yeshe Tsogyal. So we visualize Vajrayogini in this way. And in nature, then, we see her as Yeshe Tsogyal. Because Yeshe Tsogyal, then, like I said earlier, there's a particular connection between Yeshe Tsogyal and Guru Rinpoche, in that she was his closest student. Rinpoche says the visualization of ourselves as Yeshe Tsogyal is particularly important and profound. She was both Guru Rinpoche's consort and his chief disciple. He had a deep loving kindness and a great tenderness toward her, as well as confidence in her ability to understand and implement his teachings. You can actually read a life story of Yeshe Tsogyal, Lady of the Lotus Born, which describes then this relationship with Padmasambhava and the way that she practiced. Thus, if we visualize ourselves as Yeshe Tsogyal, with Guru Rinpoche dwelling upon the crown of our head, naturally our devotion will be strongly enhanced and the stream of blessings will flow more swiftly into us. So this is what creates the condition for us then to invoke Guru Rinpoche, ourselves as Yeshe Tsogyal, having that sense of not being, somebody who says, people very often, they get frustrated. We get frustrated. I'd like to spend more time with Rinpoche and all of that. And we think that there's time and space between us, but there's not. And it is by coming back to this visualization of ourselves as Yeshit Tsogyo that we can invoke this. There's absolutely nothing that prevents us from invoking the blessing of the teacher. So we might be very interested in just hanging out with the guru because he's famous, and then we maybe our picture will be in the newspaper, or people will see us as hanging out with the man and or the woman and all of that. But let's be honest, this is not why we're practicing. And as far as what really matters on the path, the experience and the sustaining of blessings and devotion, then there's absolutely nothing that prevents that. So we needn't actually ever be frustrated with the teacher. All the conditions are there. Even practical questions that we might have, where we think, oh, I should ask the teacher. Very often, if we just settle into the presence of the teacher, then the answers come. And often you hear people say that they have all these questions, and then they're sitting in front of the teacher, and all of a sudden the questions seem unimportant. So in this way, invoking the teacher, everything is present within this. So particularly then, Yeshit Tsogyo, as someone who was as close as she was to Guru Rinpoche, visualizing ourselves as her facilitates that. Rinpoche then says, who actually was Yeshit Tsogyo? She never entertained any wrong views or doubts about Guru Rinpoche, even for a single instant, and always perceived him as the Buddha in person. Because of her total and unshakable devotion, she was a perfect vessel for all of Guru Rinpoche's precious instructions. So when there is this openness that's present, this humble interest, this intelligent openness, and so forth, then so much can take place beyond just the passing on of data or information. Actually gauging and gauging the magnanimous quality of the teacher and being sensitive to the qualities of the teacher has nothing to do with words or information or data, but it comes from this place of this unshakable devotion, and that's where something can be transmitted. Thus, she was able to practice flawlessly and to attain perfect liberation. Ultimately, there was not the slightest difference between her realization and that of Guru Rinpoche. Visualizing ourselves as Yeshit Tsogyo creates an auspicious connection through which we can perceive, like Yeshit Tsogyo, all the blessings and teachings of Guru Rinpoche, and which will enable us to practice them and to attain enlightenment. She is perceived as being the mother of all the Buddhas. And just as in any family where the children have great affection for the mother, we should think that all the Buddhas have great love and affection for us. So there's nothing to lose by undertaking this visualization. Okay. Is it best to do visualization while experiencing daily worldly events if interacting with people and such? If so, answer is yes. If so, can you give us an example of how to visualize, say, a mundane thing as driving to work in its pure form? Well, driving to work is really easy because that's where very often you actually live to yourself to some extent. And just carrying that presence of Yeshit Tsogyo, however it works. First of all, to establish that this is important to do. And then also this recognition that we started off with, that this is how things actually are. So this is about us being more skillful. And so that is where sometimes it can be helpful to actually sustain this visualization of ourselves literally in that form, and also apply it in our perceptions to other, and at least recognize that our projections of the sort of ordinary reality is not as valid as our visualization. So it is about just sustaining this view of others, but it can be difficult to do in terms of then the visualization detail, and then it's more about just recognizing the purity in those that we're relating to. Just like if we meet somebody and we've been told already that they are wonderful people, they've done so much, they've worked for others in a very selfless way, and they're heroic, wonderful people, then even though we just met them, because we have that attitude in the mind, we already have a very positive sort of perception, and that's already visualization to some extent, right? So while we're sitting and visualizing on the cushion, then in everyday life we can take this experience and apply it in terms of recognizing that as basic to the people around us and the environment as well. It's something that is immediate. All it really takes is just us remembering this. So there's not really any difficulty in it. We needn't struggle with it. It's more about just coming back to it, going, oh yes. Then we drift, oh yes, coming back. At first, I can form the visualization, but with the beginning of the reading of the liturgy, I have difficulty maintaining the visualization. Do you think that with more meditation practice, which would increase my concentration, gradually I will be able to maintain my visualization longer? Yes. In fact, meditation practice just means familiarization. So we don't start off experts. We start off as, and that's why it's called practice, that we're practitioners, we're training. But also the visualization, we really just read through it to know what it is that we're supposed to visualize. So yes, not to worry about that. We read through it, and then we can actually, at the end, we can just sort of settle a little bit and just actually do it. We do that very often when we're doing, even sometimes I have one text where Khyentse Rinpoche, he's inserted, where he says, pause for visualization. So we can read through it, and then we can just have some sense of the visualization. Yeah. With visualization of a deity, should I visualize in the third person or merge the visualization with my body? In the case of Yeshe Tsogyal, we visualize our body. Yes, we are Yeshe Tsogyal, and of course it could be tempting to think of Yeshe Tsogyal as somebody historical and so forth, but that's where it's tricky. We don't really think of Yeshe Tsogyal as external. We actually think of Yeshe Tsogyal then as innate to who we are. So there's a place within the sort of luminous quality of our Buddha nature that ourselves and the deity are not separate. So this has a lot to do with understanding the already abiding purity, the nature of our mind. How does one visualize themselves as Vajrayogini in the dancing posture while sitting down? We shouldn't be too literal about the physicality. It's more that this is an expression. So we're visualizing ourselves as Yeshe Tsogyal, standing. We are sitting down, but still that's how we visualize ourselves. And with that, the gestures of the deity, we're expressing a quality, if you like, a psychological quality, but that also permeates our body and our speech. So we might as well get used to that. I remember in my retreat, there was a very funny moment when one of my friends who was visualizing himself as a deity with wings, he was complaining how he had a difficult time in the evening to sort of go to sleep with the wings. He didn't quite know how to fold them and so forth. So we needn't get too literal. There's a funny story about an Indian sage who practiced one deity who had horns, and he says as a result of that he couldn't get out of the cave because the horns were so big. But all of the forms of deities is just a way to align ourselves with the qualities of our innate natural disposition on the nature of our mind and its character, if you like. So that's where this character is in no way limited to just sitting down. Yeah, enlightened nature is not limited to sitting. We have so many different forms like that. Yeshe Tsogyal, is it like Yeshe Tsogyal is the Nirmanakaya manifestation and Vajrayogini the Sambhogakaya manifestation? Yes, that's how we very often say. Yeah, Yeshe Tsogyal manifested in this world, and yet her nature is Vajrayogini. We also say then her Dharmakaya is Samantabhadri and so forth. I heard a lovely thing one day. How do people become lovable? By loving them. That is kind of relatable to pure perception and action. That's right. Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Yes, if we want, how do people become lovable? By loving them. It's interesting, isn't it? So much tied up with our subjective engagement in phenomena, isn't it? Can we visualize our teacher? Yes, that's what we're doing here. So we're visualizing our teacher in the form of Guru Padmasambhava. Yeah, yeah. I have kind of perception that once the visualization becomes so strongly sticking in my mind, I will have the strong difficulty to drop it later. Well, that's where we talk about a good habit. Don't worry about dropping it or and so forth, about it sticking. That's good. Yeah, no, it's good. It's something that we'd want to. We are basically aligning ourselves with the pure nature of our mind. So us becoming more and more connected to that practice is more and more connecting to the primordial ground. But we also make one point though, and I think probably that's where you're coming from. That is that we don't want to solidify this. And of course, this is where in all practice of Vajrayana, even though the practice itself is the unity of appearance and emptiness, to not get stuck in what we call the eternalist extreme, we dissolve the visualization at the end. In this case, we dissolve through the mingling with the teacher, and then also there dissolving all reference points. But in sadhana practice also, and any practice of Vajrayana visualization, we always at the end dissolve. So we also let go of any kind of conceptual attachment or keeping the deity as reference point. I'm glad if this makes sense. Thank you. And we shouldn't get angry with others when they don't treat us like a deity. Yeah, I don't think we should expect people to treat us as deities. Yes, that's right. Yes, it's interesting that we even had the thought to begin with, right? But yes, that does. It's, in a way, when people treat us disrespectfully, we could say, well, that's just the nature of ego clinging, our ordinary confusion. It's how do you say, predictable, to be expected. But then again, the fact that we actually do get angry with others when they don't treat us like a deity is because somewhere there's some sense of, well, it's self-clinging, but there's also some sense that there's a purity that we're missing here. So there is in some way an aspiration towards something greater, right? How does that dissolution operate in the mundane situation? Well, I think there we just need to sustain this non-grasping attitude. So the presence of the visualization enables us to dissolve ordinary dualistic how do you say, narratives and projections. So we are, through the practice of visualization, we are engaging into a dimension of vipassana. So we would say in our ordinary life, we just sustain this view of deity, mantra, and wisdom. And that is a way of integrating the vipassana and the non-grasping in our ordinary situation. So that's post-meditation practice. Strictly speaking, then the letting go of any reference point whatsoever, it has more to do with than being on the cushion. So we would say there's meditation, post-meditation. But what's particular about Vajrayana is that it enables us to basically operate with both the shamatha and the vipassana in post-meditation. So we would generally say in post-meditation to see all forms as illusions and so forth. But in Vajrayana, then we take it a bit further then with this quality of devotion and this quality of recognizing the innate purity of the phenomena, the relative phenomena, and that's where we see phenomena as deity. And yet, deity is this unity of emptiness and appearance. But anyway, dissolution, more of just letting go of any reference points whatsoever, that's more the scope of sitting practice. But it's still present within the practice of deity, mantra, and wisdom. Okay. Oh, what did I just do? Gosh. Okay, good. All right, so Guru Rinpoche above our head. Above the crown of our head, upon a lotus of 100,000 petals, are two discs of sun and moon. The disc represents the skillful means of compassion, while the moon disc represents the wisdom of realizing emptiness. So we call the upaya, or compassion and wisdom and compassion. So here we have actually very nice tanka. I think the original actually is here where I'm living. I'm going to go and see if I can take a picture of it. But this is from a very talented artist at the Shichen art school who drew this, who painted this. So this is pretty much it, really. So you have here, if you look at the Guru Rinpoche's seat, you have the yellow down here. That's the sun, and then you have the moon. So that's the what is it again? We say the sun of compassion and the moon of wisdom. Both discs are full and flat, one floating slightly above the other, and both are floating slightly above the lotus. Upon these is seated our Guru in the form of Guru Rinpoche, in whom all objects of refuge are one. In outward aspect, he is the union of the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. In inner aspect, he is the union of the three roots, Lama, Yidam, and Dakini. In secret aspect, he is the union of the three kayas, Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. Let's see what they say here. The kayas, various aspects or states of Buddhahood. One recognizes 2, 3, 4, and 5 kayas. Yeah. In nature, he is our kind root teacher who, in this present life, is granting us all the instructions. In appearance, he is the lake-born one, Guru Padmasambhava, who is both the union and essence of all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future, manifesting here in Nirmanakaya form. His body has the indestructible nature of a vajra, or diamond. To indicate his attainment of immortality, he has the countenance of an 8-year-old child, resplendent with youth. His complexion is white, tinged slightly with red, glowing with health. He is dressed in the 9 robes, which signify his mastery of the 9 yanas. These include a garment of white beneath a blue robe and the 3 monastic robes. Over these he wears a brocade cape. The 3 monastic robes indicate his mastery of the teachings of the Hinayana. The blue garment indicates his mastery of the teachings of the Mahayana, the path of the Bodhisattvas, and the brocade cape indicates his mastery of the secret teachings of the Vajrayana, the secret mantra vehicle. That's interesting, yes. So that's the way that Guru Rinpoche sort of manifest the three jhanas. Sometimes we also say, actually this one is kind of pink, but there's usually this inner one here is white. Sometimes we said that is the Vajrayana, symbolizes the Vajrayana. He has one face, 2 arms and 2 legs. His eyes are wide open, gazing straight into the sky, indicating that he is always aware of the absolute nature. There is a slight frown or crease of the forehead between the eyebrows, although his mouth is set in a smile. Thus he unites himself in both peaceful and wrathful aspects. He is seated in the posture called royal ease. His right leg slightly extended and his left leg drawn up into a sitting posture. Just as no one would disobey the command of a king, there is no one in the 3 worlds of samsara who would disobey the command of Guru Rinpoche, the king of absolute wisdom. In his right hand he holds a 5-pronged golden vajra, here symbolizing the fruition of all the qualities of the first of the 4 initiations, the Vase initiation. I don't know why Padmakara they use initiation. I always so much like empowerment. In Tibetan it's Ong or Ongkur, which is giving power to someone. But anyway, initiation is fine too. In many of his representations, Guru Rinpoche wields this golden vajra in a pointed finger gesture at the level of the heart center. Yeah, we have this one here. Yeah. However, in this decadent age, when the victory banner is hoisted by the dark forces of negativity, Guru Rinpoche raises his all-subduing vajra towards the sky. This particular gesture, or mudra, is found elsewhere in the Longchen Yingtik, in the sadhana called Rinzenduba, and is known as Nasi Silnen, or conquering appearance and existence. This also goes, actually this same name, Nasi Silnen, applies when Guru Rinpoche's hand is down here on his right knee. Anyway, we have this in the Longchen Yingtik, and we also have it actually in Chogyo Lingpa's Tuktuk Bachi Kunsel. So this form of Guru Rinpoche you will see here and there. His left hand, which rests in the mudra of equanimity, holds a nectar-filled skull cup, a nectar-filled skull cup, which has all the perfect qualities and characteristics. There's actually quite a science around skull cups, so we would say that some skull cups have all sorts of good science. This skull cup symbolizes the fruition of the 2nd or secret initiation. The skull cup is surmounted by the vase of immortality, indicating that Guru Rinpoche has attained the level of the Vijayadhara of immortality, or the one who holds the knowledge of immortality. The vase is adorned at its top with branches of the Wishfulfilling tree. So sometimes in this, when you have the vase, here we have a jewel, but you sometimes will have a little sort of, what's the word again? A little, what's the word? When you have a little piece of branch. Anyway, a little branch from the Wishfulfilling tree. Although Guru Rinpoche can be represented wearing various kinds of hats or crowns, in this case he wears the 5-petaled lotus crown. The 5 petals symbolize the 5 Buddha families, and since Guru Rinpoche is an emanation of the Buddha of the Padma family, Amitabha, the crown is in the form of a lotus. So this hat that he's wearing, there are 5 sections to these here. There's also some in the back. This is then seen as the 5 petals. The lotus crown also indicates that, like a lotus rising free and unstained above the mud below, Guru Rinpoche manifests miraculously unstained by the obscuring process of an ordinary birth. At the top of the hat are a sun and moon, we can see here, symbolizing means and wisdoms, surmounted by the white vulture feather, so that we have here, symbolizing the realization of the ultimate view, the great perfection. So we have a vajra up here, right? But then we have up here sometimes a little bit longer and the white of this vulture feather, which is then the indication of having realized the the ultimate view of the Great Perfection. In the crook of his left arm rests the Khatwanga, or trident, symbolizing the fruition of the third or wisdom initiation. The Khatwanga is also a hidden form of the Dakini Sogyal and Mandarava, the chief consorts of Gurumja, who themselves represent bliss and emptiness. The three prongs symbolize the void nature of all appearances, its expression as pure luminosity and compassion, which is all encompassing. So that's these three here. From each of the prongs hang three rings, symbolizing together symbolizing together the 9 vehicles. So you have here, from each of these, then 3 rings that hang down. Below the prongs, from the top, are a dry skull. So that's here. Then you have these various skulls, 3 of them. A dry skull, a decaying head, and a freshly severed head, symbolizing the 3 times and the 3 kayas. Below these are a vase of long life, a pair of crossed vajras, and a damaru, or skull cup adorned with silk scarves. So all of this we have here in the trident, whose 5 colors symbolize the 5 wisdoms. Guru Rinpoche sits in space filled with intermingled rays of rainbow light and constellated with dots and circles of the 5 colors. Boundless and infinite rays of light stream from his body to all the 10 directions. From this streaming light, he can emanate, according to his wish, all the Buddha fields of the 10 directions, as well as all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and all the deities of the 3 roots. All these are emanations of his wisdom heart. He can, in the same way, gather them back into his body, therefore demonstrating that they are all one with him. There are 3 main ways of visualizing Guru Rinpoche. The first is visualizing Guru Rinpoche alone as the one jewel that embodies all. The second is visualizing Guru Rinpoche with all the precious teachers arrayed in tiers, one below the others, from the, tiers or tiers. So this is all the way up to the primordial Buddha Samantabhadra. So from the primordial Buddha Samantabhadra down to Guru Rinpoche himself. Here we will visualize according to a third method called the Great Gathering. In this practice, we visualize Guru Rinpoche at the center of a cloud-like gathering of gurus and deities, and surrounded by the assembly of all his heart disciples. These disciples are actually emanations of his body, speech, mind, qualities, and action, and as each of these aspects is further subdivided according to the same 5 categories, there are 25 heart disciples in all. These include Vairocana, Namkhin Ingpo, King Trisong Detsen, Ngondro Yeshit Sogyal, Nanam Dorje Dunjum, and so forth. Also in the crowd of great beings around Guru Rinpoche are the 8 Vijayadharas of India, holders of the 8 transmissions. These include Manjushri Mitra, who we looked at today, holder of the transmission of the body aspect of the Yidam, the wrathful Manjushri; Nagarjuna, holder of the transmission of the speech aspect, Hayagriva; Honchinkara, holder of the mind aspect, Yangdak Heruka, etc. Other members of this vast assembly are the 84 Mahasiddhas of India and all the accomplished sages and yogis of the various schools and lineages that flourish in Tibet, such as Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, Shangpa, Kagyu, Jodrug, Ujin Yenju, Shiche, Kadam, and Gilu. They thus form an immense retinue around Guru Rinpoche, consisting of all those to whom we have great devotion. We meditate that all these great teachers are above our head, with the thought that in our past lives we have received instructions from each of them. In this way, we should generate great gratitude and great devotion, thinking of ourselves like Shunu Lobsang, the intelligent young one, who attended over 150 teachers, to reach enlightenment. So also I think actually it was Jakob Khyentse Rinpoche who also attended over 150 teachers. Anyway, so this is where I think we'll stop today, and we shall continue next time. See if there's any questions. Yeah, it's a beautiful tanga. Yeah, see, I'll maybe take a picture close up on the detail of Guru Rinpoche in the middle. Do the meanings of these symbologies perpetuate the other images of Buddhas and deities? I mean, yes, the symbolism that we encounter here, such as the lotus, the sun disk, moon disk, and so forth. Yes, that's basic to very much Vajrayana iconography. Yeah, of course, there are some things that are particular for each deity. These are the same three prongs we visualize on our tongue at the beginning of the practice. No, this is different. The ones that we have at the beginning of the practice in the Longchen Nyingtik and also in the Chetchen Nyingtik Ngondro is more like if you have a vajra, it's a vajra. So here in this one where you have these three prongs are that of a trident. But we're more talking about here, you see Guru Rinpoche has a vajra here. It's that section here. And just the three prongs. Huh? Okay. Anyway, I have gone over time. Thank you very much for not going away. And we'll conclude at this point. Yeah. Thank you. Through this virtue, may all beings throughout existence awaken together without a single being left behind. In the pure realm of the luminous essence, the ground of the great perfection, may they remain inseparable from the kayas and wisdoms. Through all our births, wherever we may be born, may we be endowed with the 7 good qualities of the higher realms. As soon as we are born, may we meet with the Dharma and have the freedom to practice it properly. At that time, may we please the holy gurus and practice the Dharma throughout the day and night. Realizing the Dharma and accomplishing its essential meaning, may we cross the oceans of existence in that life. Thoroughly teaching the holy Dharma in this world, may we never tire of accomplishing the benefit of others. By this vast benefit of others, without partiality or bias, may all attain Buddhahood together.